Okay, it looks like I am live for my first live stream. Well, technically my second live stream. I tried one a few minutes ago with what I thought was just a private feed, but it turns out there were 5 of you somehow who tuned in, so sorry about that. As you know, if you've watched my other videos, I'm still trying to figure out the tech. I know the audio hasn't been as good as I'd like it to be, so please bear with me, but thanks for tuning in nonetheless. I noticed in the news today, this evening, that there are reports that an Ontario Superior Court has attempted to freeze the funds that have been sent to Give, Send, Go in support of the trucker convoy. If you've been following this a larger story, you know that originally the truck people were raising money through GoFundMe after the Ottawa chief of police and city councillors, and perhaps even the prime minister, we don't know exactly who was lobbying GoFundMe, they shut it down. And very quickly, Give, Send, Go, which I understand is a Christian-based organization, I think intended to send missionaries overseas, I believe, that they took up the mantle and have raised, I think, over 8 million US, which is probably closer, if not more, than what they had originally raised through GoFundMe. And it sounds like the Doug Ford government here in Ontario, through the Attorney General, has convinced a court to try to freeze those assets. Now, what I'm hearing reports. Rebel News was reporting that that Give, Send, Go will not be, I guess, complying. I guess that they're not in Ontario, so whether or not an Ontario court has jurisdiction, it doesn't sound like it does. Actually, Give, Send, Go tweeted recently. Um, they write, "Know this: Canada has absolutely zero jurisdiction over how we manage our funds here at Give, Send, Go. All funds for every campaign on Give, Send, Go flow directly to the recipients of those campaigns, not least of which is the Freedom Convoy campaign." So I think, like a lot of these attempts with the Ottawa police, that this is not going to have an effect. But there is something more troubling here. And I think part of the problem with this talking rationally about this protest is there are such strong feelings about the vaccines, the vaccine mandates, the lockdowns, that everyone is just very emotionally charged. And I think it's sometimes helpful if you can imagine, even, no matter what side you're on, if you can imagine a very benign topic, and I don't know what one would be, and it's obviously silly, but um, let's suppose 90% of the people in Canada wanted a flat tax of, oh, I don't know, 25%, and then another 10% wanted it to be 26%. So they're on two different sides of this issue over 1% of a tax rate, let's just say. I know it's silly. And the 26 percenters decide to go to Ottawa, wave their flags, and all that kind of thing. Is it right for governments to interfere with the fundraising for the pro 26% tax rate people? I mean, that would be absurd, clearly. So why would this be any different? Whether you think mandates are great or vaccines are awesome or they're not, is sort of beside the point. We have people exercising their what is supposed to be their rights that are protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada, and we have many levels of government very clearly trying to interfere. And again, I'm thankful that their attempts make them look kind of silly, frankly. But we've had, shutting down the GoFundMe. We've had Ottawa Police Services collecting diesel. We get things in the media where there was reports, I think earlier today, where the Ottawa police are saying they're going to start arresting people, or that's what the headline kind of says. And you read it and you kind of realize that it's couched in all kinds of, well, people may be arrested if we find them doing anything wrong, which of course is par for the course in any day in a democracy. Yet I think what's happening is the media is trying to perhaps scare the truckers. I don't know. Maybe this attempt is meant to signal to people who might be donating to maybe not donate, because for fear that their cash won't get to the truckers. But I think these things are backfiring. it sort of reminds me, a lot of people forget this. Here in Ontario, we had the same Doug Ford government. I can't remember exactly when, but several months ago. It probably would have been at least 6 months ago. It's hard to keep track of time during this pandemic. But he gave sweeping powers to police forces across Ontario to, if I'm remembering correctly, to basically stop people at random to verify that they have a legitimate reason to be out of their house. And thank goodness, far and wide, our police forces here in Ontario said, no, we're not going to enforce that. And I am so thankful that it was our police that protected us from that. But it's also really chilling to think. I mean, I like the police, but in democracy, you don't want the police themselves to be the check against power of a politician. So I'm glad they went that way, but it is kind of scary that it came to that. And now you have the attorney general trying to interfere with people donating. And again, even if you don't believe in these protests, I mean, it could be something else. Maybe you're donating to your church, or maybe there's some other political advocacy group that you believe in. It doesn't really matter what the issue is. Maybe you want more gun rights. Maybe you want more gun restrictions, and you believe in that. So you give of your money that you've earned and that you freely decide to give to a cause. And then we have a government, I want to say government agency. It's more than that. It is, it seems pretty clear. I think the mainstream news are reporting that it came from the Premier's office. He asked the Attorney General. The Attorney General, I guess, convinced a court to do this. I tried looking some of this stuff up. I certainly don't have a law background. The CBC cited a specific section of the criminal code. I'll see if I can find it here. They cite section 490, subsection 8. And I read this, and it's, I mean, I've worked in human resources. I read health and safety stuff. I'm usually pretty good at this, but this one is pretty opaque. Now, the heading here is detention of seized things. And then there's all these sections, and it's this whole area seems to be talking about maybe when a crime is committed. I'm talking broadly here, the 490 section, and they talk about subsection 8 specifically, which I'll get to. But it talks about like when there's a crime, or if it's unclear when like who property belongs to, that a justice, that is a judge, may seize certain properties, basically hold in abeyance the sort of normal property rights until they can kind of figure it out. That's sort of the tone of this. And there's sort of time limits of how long things can be seized, and whether like it's an accused person, like their property can be basically held. And then section 8 or subsection 8, and its heading is called exception. I'll read it to you, but it doesn't make much sense to me. It reads, a judge of a superior court of criminal jurisdiction, or a judge as defined in section 552, where a judge ordered the detention of the things seized under subsection 3, or a justice in any other case, may allow an application to be made under subsection 7 prior to the expiration of the periods referred to therein, where he is satisfied that hardship will result unless the application is allowed. So you guys tell me what that means. Actually, you probably know him. He's got a huge channel. His name's Viva Fry. He's based in Montreal. And I'm not sure if he's still a member of the bar. He certainly was a practicing lawyer. Maybe he can help sort this out. So it's a pretty opaque thing here. And my guess is, well, one, it sounds like they probably don't have jurisdiction, which is great. And two, maybe it's just a nuisance. But again, like, are politicians like clearly interfering with, someone making a free will donation to a cause that they believe in? Again, it's beside the point whether you believe in these protests and what they mean. Anyway, my wife's sort of been keeping her finger on the pulse in terms of some Facebook pages. There's lots of rumor mills out there, so she's really good at delving in and sort of sorting out fact from fiction. But what we're hearing is, like the seizure of the diesel fuel, like just the inflammatory remarks made earlier by Police Chief Slowly, like the media trying to frame the protesters as being extremists and have a propensity for violence. All these things don't seem to be detracting from their cause here and what they believe in. So that bodes well. But we have some serious questions to ask of our governments and our agencies. Do we want to give them more power? I'm not sure where it is, but in the Canadian Parliament, not too long ago, there's been discussion of a bill to further, I guess, regulate tech companies vis-a-vis speech, hate speech, that kind of thing. I won't pretend to know all the ins and outs, but I think the gist of it was the Canadian government wanted even more power to make tech companies like YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, etc., basically squelch out certain types of speech. It's funny, as if these platforms need any more help. They're doing that already. Facebook, like I've heard lots of reports that certain posts just get vaporized. I'm just going to take a pause here. My wife Janet's been kind of looking at the top chat. Oh, I see something here, but I can't read and talk at the same time. People's Republic of Canada, tyranny at its best. That is government. By the people, definitely not for the people. That's very true. We could get into all kinds of stuff. I can't remember. There's one quotation I think my wife pointed out to me. And I'm paraphrasing, the idea being that any government that gets big enough tends toward authoritarianism. I haven't had the time to sort of turn that over in my head. It certainly rings true. I don't know that necessarily is true, but it seems plausible. I know my work in the corporate world, I've seen that, where bureaucracy tends to build on itself. In large organizations, it seems like it's never a good day to dismantle a unit or a department, but rather as you solve problems, the tendency is to bolt more things, add more layers of rules or departments or people that look at things or coordinate things. That's the other thing. I've noticed that working in HR, it's a pattern. Again, I'm so glad I'm not working in HR at the moment with this pandemic, because it must be absolute madness. So I've dealt with things that are on such smaller scale, but the tendency is, so you have a big company and there's a legitimate problem in the company. Maybe it's the quality of their product is they're getting too many rejects or customer complaints, or something's gone kind of wrong. And so it finally gets to the executives, and then they decide we need to do something about this problem. And the answer often looks like, we'll set up a task force. So we'll get a small handful of people. They're going to look into it. They're going to make some reports. And then every Monday morning, they're going to give their report on this. So that person who gets put in charge of that, they get some staff, they get some more money, they get notoriety, they get access to people at a higher level. And those first few Monday meetings, like, they're probably making some big strides in there and they're solving the problem. And then usually the problems never go completely away. They just kind of get tamped down a little bit. But it's never a good day for whoever was in charge of that to say, you know what, Mr. Executive, we could probably disband my department now. The problem's more or less solved. Why don't we get back to our other jobs? That generally does not happen. Instead, they find new problems or exaggerate the problems that exist. And it's sort of human nature. That way they have, when it's budget time, they can justify larger staff and things like that. I think something like that has happened with this pandemic. We've had so many people, who are looking at the numbers and reporting and coming up with contingency plans and inventing new rules and what about this and what about that, and people get worked up into a frenzy. Never a good day when you're in that, and when your livelihood depends on that. And not to be cynical, but I think some people really find so much meaning in their work that they think, and finding meaning in your work is good, but sometimes you can get, if you invest all your meaning in your work, you become maybe too attached to it. And it's never a good day. Like if you're Dr. Teresa Tam, is it a good day to say, you know what, you've probably heard enough from me. How would I go back to doing my thing? COVID's more or less over. She is starting to say that a little bit. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Maybe if this is something you guys like, I'll try to do some more live streams. I was hoping to actually do it on my phone because oddly enough, the video quality on my phone is actually better than this 6-year-old MacBook Air. So I know the tech hasn't been great, but I'm trying to get it better. If you guys have ideas, we are going back to Ottawa on Saturday if everything goes well. We don't really have a specific plan. We'll certainly be out on the street. If there's certain angles or things, if there's counter protesters, a lot of you liked that video where I was talking to the guy who basically called me a white supremacist. I don't know if they'll be out. I don't know that they have a lot of energy behind them, but if there are counter protesters, I would like to engage with them politely and calmly. One other thing, couple other things. The first video I made about losing my job at Postage Fire, some fellow named Marcel Ernie, I believe is his last name, he got that video and he posted it on his site, which is actually great because I think a lot of you found me maybe through him. And I guess lately it's been going, I guess, kind of viral. I think it's over 600,000 views. So anyway, he and I are going to have a chat hopefully tomorrow. I've never talked to him. We just exchanged emails. I'll post that for sure. Also, I got wind through the grapevines that I guess so many people have seen that video that people are phoning and or emailing Postage Township, maybe trying to talk to the chief administrative officer. I'm not sure exactly, but apparently he sent an email out to all staff saying that there's an influx of calls and emails about that video. In that same email, he apparently, I don't know this firsthand because I'm not on staff there, but I have it on good authority that that's what's happened. I guess some people, in his view, have maybe been using harassing language or tone. I don't know the details. I don't know if that's indeed true. I'm not asking people to call the township, although I really appreciate the support. But if you feel compelled to do it, please treat the staff there kindly. The vast majority of them are wonderful people whom I've worked with, although on the township side, I didn't work that closely with them, just more on the fire department. But if you have complaints you want to air, just do it civilly for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's important to respect people. And two, I think, looking at this trucker protest, I think the reason it's had so much power is because they've been so well behaved. A great way to hurt your cause is to come across as a nut or a kook or someone who's, yelling and swearing. It's very easy to dismiss people when they're well behaved. But when you're calm, well reasoned, and stick with your what's that, hon?
You said when they're behaved.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. I misspoke there. So if you're not well behaved, it's easy to dismiss you. It's hard to dismiss you when you're well behaved. Thanks for that. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll do more of this in the future if it's something you like. Thanks. Have a good night. Oh, Australia. I'm not sure what time of day it is in Australia. It's probably a different season and a different time of day, I'm sure. Have a good night or a good day.